Welcome to BizTech's Jobs and Careers Show. Our guest today is Sujith Abraham. He's a Senior Vice President and General Manager of Salesforce ASEAN. Salesforce is an American cloud-based software company headquartered in San Francisco, California. The company provides customer relationship management software and applications focused on sales, customer service, marketing automation, analytics, and application development. Now, to tell us more, Sujith, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian, for having me. Excited to be here.
Now, Sujith, give us an overview of Salesforce and your role within the organization.
Well, so let me start with Salesforce. Salesforce is our roots are in CRM, where we're connecting our customers with their customers and creating powerful relationships. And over time, we've continued to make acquisitions that allowed us to build an increasingly better picture of our customers, right? So we are able to form, go from selling to them, to servicing them, to marketing to them, and building this amazing understanding for our customers of their customers. So we're here really to make those relationships powerful, richer, and allow them to build on them extensively.
And give us a sense of your footprint in ASEAN and some of the sectors that you focus on.
So we cover all of the major sectors you would think about, whether it's banking or retail or telco or manufacturing. So really across the board, anywhere, the industry, service industries, for example, consulting. So any industry that has customers, you can imagine that sells or services or markets them, we're there to help drive that. And we serve all of the markets in ASEAN with a particular focus, on especially the large markets. When we look at Singapore, Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia. So all the major markets you could imagine that constitute ASEAN, we're there.
I want to zoom in on your Global Digital Skills Index, which was launched earlier this year. Now, I did some research and I found some fascinating key findings. Could you share with our audience really some of these key findings which really surprised everyone?
I'd be happy to, and they were surprising for us. I mean, I think for a long time, we've had this amazing digital boom in the last few years, right? With a lot of discussion about some of the technologies and platforms like social media and so forth, and equating that with digital readiness. Now, what we did is we commissioned some global research for the first time, and given that increasingly tech-first workplace, especially as we've seen over the last couple of years, we wanted to get a clear understanding of the readiness of the workforce to acquire digital skills, needed to close the skills to close the gap and succeed in the workplace. What we're seeing, though, is multiple gaps when it comes to people's perceptions around digital skills readiness and the pursuit of education and training. So let me talk about things at a high level, take it from a global level. So 73% of our respondents don't feel very equipped globally with resources to learn digital skills required to succeed now. And then when you look at, the number really goes up to 76% when respondents considered the resources and skills that'll be needed in the next 5 years. So there's already a large majority not ready now, and they're even more concerned when we talk about the future. And here's really in my mind, one of the punchlines. Only 28% of those folks are very actively participating in digital skills education and training programs. If I look at Singapore, picture is similar in terms of the readiness today, right? So 73% don't feel equipped to learn the digital skills they need in businesses today. And when I look at the future, a little bit better, about 71% don't feel equipped for the future. And in light of that, not too dissimilar from the global numbers, about 29% are actively involved in any sort of digital skills training and programs today. So interesting stats. Now, one other thing I will point out is that 82% of the respondents globally do plan to learn new skills, and 51% of them plan to grow their current career, while 31% are looking at charting a new path.
Now, Sujith, I find that 29% for Singapore respondents that are actively involved in digital skills learning really surprising. And I'm sure if I was the government, I would be shocked because of all the programs like Skills Future that exist in Singapore, which is paid for primarily by the government, yet the response rate is so low. How does Singapore compare with some of the other countries in ASEAN? You would expect Singapore to really be at the highest level of readiness compared to some of the other countries in the region.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to sort of look at that number in isolation and think, you know, what is Singapore behind? But frankly, it's hard to compare markets because some markets may need to apply more focus and skills. And for example, in some of the emerging economies, for a variety of reasons, there may be a need to sort of leap past where they are. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Singapore isn't a digital ready place, because if comparing across markets can jump, get yourself into metrics that you're not considering or conditions that you're not considering that are more important in those markets. So for example, you may find yourself in another market where there is a high degree of tech skills, but that might be because they're already a development rich environment where there's a lot of coding and development done. So it's hard to compare. And mind you, this is also self-reported sense, so the context is also important here. So it's a bit difficult to say, concretely that Singapore is per se any less ready than another market. This is how these respondents would perceive themselves.
Now, I want to then talk about within the ASEAN context and also globally, the digital skills gap, because some of the things that the study talks about is really one of the key things that stood out for me is everyday digital skills don't translate into the workplace.
Correct.
Could you kind of elaborate on that? Because I think our audience would find that quite surprising.
Yeah, no, Brian, I'm really, really glad you asked this question. So when we think about these skills that are needed in the workplace, what's needed, I think initially when people think about digital skills, they're thinking about, social media, posting, that kind of thing. But when we talk about the workplace, and I think this has become incredibly more pronounced in the last couple of years, we've all been literally operating from home, right? And that shift has required a set of skills that have become more and more pronounced. So if I think about them, they are skills like collaboration technology skills. We obviously have an offering in that area with Slack, but other collaboration platforms, knowing how to do that, knowing how to work across, knowing how to bring different groups together to get something done, especially if you're outcome focused, is becoming increasingly critical. Digital administrative skills, so digitally filing paperwork, virtually meeting with stakeholders, presenting important information, and developing digital first processes. All of that's becoming more and more to the forefront. And then you can imagine with the demand for digital, we've got more and more digital access points. Because of that, encryption, cybersecurity skills, all those skills to help protect data from unauthorized parties, those skills are becoming incredibly important.
And so how do organizations then, in an era of distributed workforce in particular, how are organizations going to close this skills gap?
Well, I think there's a couple of things probably even ahead of that. One is really to take a look at what are, if they look at their environment, what type of learners do they have, right? And understanding the types of learners they have, and we've done some important research there. And once you do that, you can then start to tailor the programs to the types of learners that you have, right? So for example, what we surfaced was that there were 3 key learner themes, and within those learner themes, 6 learner profiles. So we're getting more and more granular, and building, learning pathways that tailor, or learning programs that tailor to those types of learners is what's important. But being able to understand that, and I can take you through what those learning themes are if it helps.
Yes, because I want to find out more. I'm sure the audience does as well. What future learners are, what face value learners are, and what familiar learners are.
Ah, good, perfect. So future learners, think of them as established skill seekers, right? They're the ones who are extremely skilled with a desire to continue developing their skills and taking action to do so. They're very proactive. They're highly skilled. They're highly skilled for the skills needed now. But sorry, the second group is proactive learners who are highly skilled, and they're very good with the skills now versus the skills that we're going to need in the 5 years. But these learners generally feel prepared with digital skills needed now and in the future, and they're pretty optimistic about the future of technology. They're not fearing it either. They're ready to embrace it. They want to learn. They want to get out there, and they're probably the most set up for success by taking action to develop or grow their digital skills that they need. The learners in this group also, interestingly enough, tend to be visual and interactive, right? So that whole visual interactive piece has come more to the forefront. And they are, these are the folks that are well suited to mentor others and build communities of learning. So you really want to surface these folks early on. The second group, the face value learners, they break out into two subgroups, right? Living in the now and unprepared preparers. So the living in the now, they're sort of the medium skill levels. So not quite at the, like the group before, the future learners, but they feel prepared with digital skills now, but they are not for the next 5 years. And the unprepared preparers feel prepared for the current digital environment and are not participating in their training to grow their skill levels. So slightly different from the living in the now, who at least are cognizant of what they're not aware of in the next 5 years and have an inclination towards it. Now, as a group, these learners are comfortable prioritizing skills needed today to succeed and will most likely benefit from deepening their knowledge of blind spots in current tech and getting a head start on future skills. Again, these learners often learn very well visually as well. They can be encouraged to be more proactive about further developing their digital skills for their current and future work needs. So not quite the folks, like I said in the first category, but still in a pretty good position to accelerate.
Now, Sujith, with those profiles in mind, also one of the key things that the question that a lot of leaders would ask is, what advice would you give companies or CEOs who want to develop the digital competencies of their workforce, given that my workforce falls into these three categories? What some of the key advice would you give the key knowledge of the chief knowledge officer or the chief executive officer?
Well, I think if when you look at that, what you can do, what's important is, especially if I bring it into the ASEAN context, which I think is important, right? When we look at what's happening in the ASEAN digital learner profiles, the workforce here is largely made up of future learners, and those learners need to be empowered in their digital skills development journey. So being highly skilled in digital technologies and proactively seeking out learning opportunities to address these skill gaps, these employees want to be able to co-create, right? They want to be a part of the design journey, so to speak. So they're not going to be the ones that just sit in the classroom and do the one way thing. They want to be actively involved. They're already lifelong proactive learners. They want to feel challenged at work, and so these future learner employees are likely to thrive in solving complex issues. And honestly, they have a high degree of confidence in negotiating this fast changing world of technology, and high skill levels also potentially making them good mentors. We talked about that as well, taking them out of the mix as they reach their sort of badges or goals, if you will, and turning them into mentors that motivate the rest of the group. So to cater these learners, what we would recommend businesses do is to focus on initiatives that create opportunities for these future learners in their workforce to lead in projects and acquire higher skill levels to take on complex assignments. In addition to that, businesses should also create flexible programs that support the other learner profiles and rethink how they connect with their employees and customers and communities, including how they partner with the public sector to create programs on top of digital skills and opportunities for learners based on learning styles and to work for them. I think there's a lot of that happening in Singapore, and I think we need to be doing more and more of that.
Now, interestingly enough, while researching this, Sujith, I found out a fascinating thing that Salesforce has called Trailhead. which is the online learning platform. And I thought that was really quite forward thinking of Salesforce. And obviously it's grown over the years. Could you shed some light into Trailhead? And also I see that connection of how future learners really can plug into that and fertilize ideas within their own organizations.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We are very excited about Trailhead. So Trailhead is a free learning platform. Anybody can go to it, trailhead.com. And it has a wealth of information on it, a wealth of training from, mainstream business topics all the way through to topics on the different areas that Salesforce covers. So sales, service, marketing, areas that we can enable people to participate in and become part of the Salesforce ecosystem and actually help deliver Salesforce solutions. So if you wanted to be an administrator of a Salesforce application, you could receive your certification in that area. If you want to go deeper and build reports or to develop, you could do all of that on Trailhead. So it's a really fascinating companion, I would say. And as I mentioned, we've got a lot of people, just in ASEAN alone, to give you an idea, we have 85,000 learners on Trailhead learning new skills. And globally, I believe we have something in the neighborhood of 3.7 million people. So it's a wide platform or a wide-standing platform. A lot of people participating, a lot of people creating careers in it. A lot of people within our customers also, using it to skill up and being able to get ready to take over their instance of Salesforce and take ownership of it. But ultimately, what I think is really fascinating about it is it just democratizes access to skilling up.
Sujith, it's been a fascinating conversation. I've really learned a lot. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, look, I think whether you're an organization with knowledge workers, you're independent, or you're the public sector, it's really, really important. I was just at a lunch recently in Thailand with some of our senior customers, and they were talking about the need for us to get together as customers, as partners, as a public sector, with universities, and start bringing people into this whole skilling up, bringing them into this journey with business relevant skills, right? And getting into collaboration, into security, into administrative digital skills, and making sure the new crop of students, or even people looking to switch their careers, are really ready for that. I think that we have an ample supply of platforms to support that. We're obviously a big proponent of that. We believe we can help people change their careers. We believe we can help existing Salesforce advocates come in and become independent. So I would say, have a look at the platform. The digital skills gap has accelerated, and reskilling is now a worldwide priority. Businesses really do need to take a lead in collaborating with the governments and partners and communities to ensure that digital skills training reaches all segments of the workforce to accelerate business growth.
Now, I'm Brian Fernandez, and we've been speaking to Sujith Abraham. He's the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Salesforce ASEAN on BizTech's Jobs and Careers show. This video and podcast will be on our various social media platforms, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.